Hi, back in session with Professor P. We're moving on to Chapter 3, Genetics and Evolution for Anthro 5. As usual, you could take out your concept sheets, print them out, or they're in your Canvas course, and I'll go over some of the terms. Sometimes if I skip one, you could look it up yourself. Everything comes straight out of the book. All right, let's move on. Genetics and evolution. We want to start with the timeline. What was going on 65 to 55 million years ago? First, primates appeared, right? That were ancestral to all primates. Nobody knows exactly what that is. Nobody could give you a correct answer on that. 35 million years ago, first monkeys and apes appeared, right? 15 to 20 million years ago, ape-like ancestors to humans emerged. It doesn't mean we evolved from monkeys. No, it just means there was similarities in that. Ape-like and human-like, right? So it becomes important. Ape-like ancestors of humans. 4 million years ago, first human-like beings appeared, right? That's coming into fruition as us, right? 100,000 years ago, modern-looking human beings. We were here 100,000 years ago. All right, that's sort of that little timeline. Let's get to Darwin. We all heard of Darwin, right? And we all heard of natural selection. But in order to really understand that, Darwin says, in order for genetics and evolution, in order for all this to happen, three principles have to take place. Variation, heritability, differential reproductive success. Variation means that we have to have a variation of individuals, right? And that every species is composed of a great variety of individuals. Some are going to be better adaptable to the environment than others. So certain characteristics and traits are going to be favored over others, and those are going to continue, right, to continue, right? The bad traits hopefully will then be maladaptive and then die off, right? The second one, heritability, just means all offspring are going to inherit from their parents certain traits, right? Differential reproduction means better adapted individuals produce more offspring over time, all right? He says all those things actually have to take place. Let's get to environmental changes. Basically, what they're saying is this. When we have external changes in the environment, external means it's always outside. It's always going to be within the natural environment. That means those external changes, those environmental changes are going to affect us. Species with maladaptive traits. Maladaptive means that they're traits that are going to be detrimental, right? They're not going to help them continue to reproduce and thrive within a given environment. We want adaptability. We want us to help us continue to reproduce, right, within a given environment and then continue. So when we look at the environment, we have to understand that if the environment stays the same, there's going to be no need to change. The moment the environment starts to change, we're going to have to look at within modern day. Look at the drought, for example. The moment we have a drought, we have to then change our cultural behavior. We have to start recycling. We have to start, getting more energy efficient. We have to maybe, lower our water usage, right? We have to, all these kinds of things with the external environment changes, we then have to adapt to those changes. And that's what it's really talking about in there. All right, let's get to Gregor Mendel. Gregor Mendel was known for his extreme studies in genetics, right? And he's the one who came up with the dominant and recessive traits. Dominant traits are those traits that are going to appear most frequent in time, like brown eyes or brown hair. Recessive traits mean those are traits that are less frequent. In a recessive trait, both your parents have to be carriers. In a dominant, they do not. All right? So that's what they're really talking about in those particular sections. What about genes? Not the ones that you wear, but our genes. Those are unit of heredity, right, that we're all going to acquire. All right, DNA. DNA has become very important to the study of anthropology because with DNA, we are able now to trace serial killers. We're able to look at the past. We're able to get DNA samples from Homo erectus and Neanderthal and things like that. But we all have a unique coded genetic code. And that's what it is. It's a coded genetic code. And we all have it. It's all unique to us. And that's what becomes important for an identification marker. All right. Genetic drift. Let's talk about genetic drift. Genetic drift is basically talking about this, that in small isolated populations, right, we're going to stay the same. But genetic drift basically says this. Part of us are going to veer off, right, and we're going to have a genetic drift, which means that there's going to be a change in our genetic code. There's going to be a change with genetic drift, right? It becomes important because when populations are isolated, they may not have genetic drift, right? But we obviously have genetic drift, right? There's a variation in our genetic code. That becomes important. All right, genetic recombination or mutation. We'll get to now. But when we talk about mutation, we're really talking about a change in our genetic code, right? Something happened where we're gonna have that change, right? All right, let's get to species. A species is just a population that consists of organisms that can interbreed and produce viable offspring. We are a human species, right? Males and females can typically come together and reproduce a viable offspring. Speciation means it's a development of a new species. That takes a very long time to occur. So don't just think we're going to go, ooh, a species is going to happen tomorrow. That's not how it happens. It takes a long time to do that. So that becomes like really important to understand. All right. We can get to the next term, right? We talk about gene flow, and that's just sort of mating and passing on our genetic code through mating. Culture. One of the things that you guys are going to get to in this particular class in the next sections is culture. Culture's basically learned behaviors and learned values that we acquire at birth and continue to change. All of us have a culture. We have a big culture like the American culture, and then we have our in-home family cultures. And we're going to talk about those learned behaviors and those values and traits that we learn throughout the course of our lifetime. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed the chapter on genetics and evolution. I'll see you back for the next